Ladies and gentlemen, how are you? It's Waco from Revolution here with the man of the hour, Jean Arnault. How are you, sir?
Good to see you, Ray.
Yeah. I have to say a massive congratulations on the Louis Vuitton Watch Prize for Independent Creatives. I think the thing that I took away from it the most was the entire global watch community showed up, and they showed up to give love and support to Vuitton because they now consider it to be their watch brand. So let's talk about how meaningful that was to you.
Yeah, it was an amazing moment. I could not have expected anything better than that, to be honest. It was, often those sort of events can be sort of very cold and not very personal, but I felt that during the ceremony, before and after, people were happy to be here and it felt very human. And that's what I liked about it. And that's what I love about the independent watch space in general as well, in any industry, we talk about the watch industry, but it can be anything else. As soon as companies get quite big, you lose that sort of human touch and you get a bit more of a robotic answer when you talk to companies and when you talk to things. And I feel like the independent watch space is not like that at all. And so you talk to the creator directly, in most cases, eponymous brands which are held by the creator. And they're close teams, which all feel they're part of the same mission. Obviously, the 5 finalists, but even more established brands. So I was very happy about that, and I hope we can make the prize grow in the next coming years.
That's awesome, man. Raúl Pagès, who I love his vision for watchmaking because it's aesthetically completely different. His regulator is beautifully laid out, and yet he decided to also pursue something super technical like a Détente escapement. Tell me why you think he deserved to win the prize.
I'll be honest. When I did not know about the watch before he applied and then got to the semifinal. When he arrived in the semifinal, I looked more closely at all the projects, and I didn't really realize the extent at which the technical complexity of a Détente escapement is. And so then started reading about it and slowly realized, oh my God, it's really such an interesting complication in itself, but that's totally underrated. And so the complexity to do one, I was talking to my teams at Fabrique being like, how complicated is that to do? And they were like, oh my God, it's like just 3 months to assemble the escapement just in itself. And don't even talk about the finishing and anything like that for the watch to tick. And it's really such a hard thing to do. And I think amongst the 5, and that's probably the reason why the jury was unanimous to vote for him, it was the most horological piece there. You had hyper complications, great clocks and things like that, which I would have voted for before seeing all of them in the flesh. But the true sort of watchmaking watch that was there was that one, and that's probably why I think he won. Obviously, the aesthetics and everything like that was great, but the watchmaking behind it is probably the most niche.
Absolutely. There was an incredible moment when he realized that he'd won. He got on stage, and in the nicest way possible, because out of happiness, he started to cry. Yeah. And I think it's because he realized his life had just changed, because now he's going to benefit from the platform of Vuitton, which is now going to broadcast his message around the world, right? Tell me how important that is to you to uplift the smaller guys. Yeah,
it's very important. The mentorship is the core part of this whole prize. We obviously have a cash prize involved, but that to me is not as important. It won't get you anywhere far in terms of buying machines and getting things like that. So it's more about a sort of token of appreciation. The most important part is, above all, that mentorship. So prize was 2 days ago. I'm giving it a bit of space this week, but after that we'll be on his back and asking him if he needs help. What does he need? How can we, sort of start thinking about industrial collaborations and things like that to help him out. I've already had the opportunity to have lunch with him the day before, the day of the prize, but just before the ceremony, and he was already telling me the lead times for this and that is so long, and it's so hard to work with, etc. So I think we can help him out with a few things, or even just small techniques to use for different components.
I was talking to him too, and he was like, it's small, it's me and one other dude, and it takes a long time to just get anything done, especially when you want to make it yourself. So I think he's going to benefit tremendously from that. But let's talk about the other contestants as well, because I think all of them obviously benefited from being nominated, right? And all of them really, appreciated that moment too. Jean-Michel Flo.
Yes.
I mean, he's the one guy that did this kind of crazy automaton bee that is actually a time machine and can actually shows you what he calls poetic time. You know,
Yes.
yeah. I mean, tell me what you thought about that.
Yeah, I mean, incredibly interesting, and above all, something that you never really see in the watch industry in general. Clocks in general is something that's completely forgotten nowadays, I feel. You don't see as much of them. There are some crazy pieces here and there, but it's not something that's gaining a lot of traction. You have 2-3 companies doing it, but it's not as widespread as wristwatches. But I feel like it's a lot more interesting because you can get more room, you can get a lot more of craftsmanship involved, and you don't get the same constraints as you get with watchmaking in general. So it was insanely interesting, insanely intelligent as well. The way the bee rotates to tell you the time and things like that. And I feel the story behind it to be extremely interesting because he talks about the human life element to it, where we all need bees to survive and things like that. And for instance, I remember talking to Maxime Frédéric, which is a chocolate maker, a patisserie chef,
right.
That's also part of the expert committee, that told me, you know, I had to put all my votes for this guy because without bees, I cannot do my job.
Right.
I can't get cocoa, I can't get any of those raw elements because they pollinate everything. And so beyond the watchmaking, this to me for the meaning was probably the most important watch out there. And he's passionate about watches. He really knows his stuff, but he told me straight away, that's the one I want to see win, you know?
That's awesome. And it's also nice to see like a journeyman like Andreas Streller together
Yes.
with Enrico Santoni. And they came up with this really cool Tisch calendar, which is a desk calendar, but it's sympathetically coordinated with the pocket watch, right? A perpetual calendar pocket watch. And he was saying like, you know, I'm a behind the scenes kind of guy, and just to be able to be on this stage, just to be, you know, a little bit in the spotlight means a lot to me because I would like people to know my name a bit more.
You know, a lot of people asked me before saying, oh, does this person need mentorship more than this person, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, I don't make the choice, so I don't know.
Right.
But even people that are more established in the watch industry that would want to apply to the prize in 2 years, I mean, we have many, many things to discuss. I don't think we can do things better than them in many cases, you know, but we can at least discuss and debate and have conflicting ideas. And I think that's already moving a needle. Like for instance, Andreas Scheller, we have nothing to teach him in terms of movement construction, movement finishing, architecture in general, or even complication. I mean, the desk clock is something that no one else than him could do. But in terms of, I don't know, general reach and probably communication and things like that, as he said on stage, I think could be something where he could learn from us, you know. And so we could learn from him technical wise, but he would learn from us in terms of communication. And I think for every single one of them on that stage 2 days ago, something different could have been learned, you know.
I love that Gail and Florian actually shouted out Enrico and Michel from the Fabrique Détente, because they were like, oh, if we were to win, that's the guys we would love to work with because we can learn so much from them. You know, how nice is it to have that as a resource?
It's incredible. I mean, it gives you that peace of mind of saying, regardless of the movement or the construction you're working on, just like Roth Agenta, for instance, you know that first of all, the movement is going to be reliable, which is not a given in haute horlogerie, and it's going to be beautiful. It's going to have great finishing. You know that every single piece will be cared for, and that's something that they sort of reflexes that they got by their experience, and it's something that's very comforting because you know that not only will they do a great job, but they'll do probably the best job at it, bar from a few independents that can do great things as well, but with the big brands, something that could be quite good.
Amazing. So, you know, I want to talk to you a little bit about how you made this incredible evolution to Vuitton. I'm sure at some point you're going to be at your alma mater teaching a PhD level course on this, but let's look at it, okay? Let's break down the components. So I think the first thing was to boldly discontinue the old Tambour, which was your best-selling reference, and introduce what's on your wrist now, which has become kind of a watch that like everyone wants to buy, or at least the guys that I know who are serious about watchmaking, maybe even love independence, but that's become like the integrated bracelet sport chic watch they want. Like, for example, our friend Michael Shanlikian, or AKA Shani Watch, and he's so proud to be wearing his Tambour.
Yeah, he tells me he wears it quite often as well and things. You know, it's an honor for us to be considered within that small, tight-knit collector community. I don't think Vuitton would have been their first choice 3-4 years ago.
No.
and now you can see that it's something that's getting on top of their minds. So that's quite interesting. Take the money aspect outside of it, but it's really about the fact that they explain to me now, like, oh, I love this detail, I love that detail, I love this, and that, and I'm like, oh, well, that's so great because that's all the emotions I've put into the watch, right? Sending it back to the drawing board 3, 4, 5 times because this bridge was not great, or I wanted transparent sapphires, or I wanted this, that, and then them explaining to me, I love that detail, I love this, and everybody has their own little favorite part of it that I find interesting. It's those kinds of exchanges and stories that I love, regardless of the amount we sell or things like that. It's really about the people that really know their stuff and are very peculiar about the watch.
And I would say for anyone that has any doubts about the tambour, I would just say go try it on, right?
Exactly. It's available in store. You can see it. You can try it on. It's quite interesting.
Okay, and so number 2 was this collaboration with independent watchmakers, right? Which yielded this wonderful collaboration with the Régulateur last year, which was a tourbillon chronograph with an en passant sonnery for the elapsed minutes.
Simply enough.
But I happen to know, and I'm not going to obviously reveal anything, but that you're not going to stop there in terms of the ambitiousness of these projects. There is really an ambition for Vuitton, together with these incredible artisans, to write watchmaking history. Why is that important to you?
So we announced when we started the collaboration in the Reg that there were going to be 5 collaborators in the next 5 years, and not one more. Why? Because I feel like we need to live up as well to the watch that Reg made for us, and the amount of work that he's put in, the crazy complication and things, and I'm not sure there are thousands of watchmakers that are able to do what he's done, right? So we need to find, let's say, the all-stars, the top 5 guys or girls that could work on projects like that, and we found them all. All the projects are very interesting, and one thing, in my perspective, when I approached all of these watchmakers, and you'll see it over the years when this project will develop, is Vuitton has the financial resources. We don't have their craft or their technical excellence in many cases. And so we tried to push the boundaries there to say, okay, regardless of the thing you wanted to work on, you've always wanted to do, we'll put in the budget, you can do whatever you want with it, and then create something incredible. And you'll see some amazing stuff. I have them in mind, and I'm sure it's going to yield something interesting for the watch industry in the future.
Amazing. And then number 3 is the activation of 2 of the greatest living watchmakers, Enrico Barbazzini and Michel Navas at La Fabrique de Temps, but really to express their true voice for horlogerie, Daniel Roth and Gerald Genta.
That's not my idea. I think I told you the story before, but it's actually my father's idea. He came to visit Fabrique du Temps in April of 22, and after Watches and Wonders, and he met Michel and Enrico for the first time, right? They had coffee together, started explaining their whole backstory of, we started at Genta, then Patek, then AP, and et cetera, et cetera. And then when he said, oh, Genta, that's great, we own this. I mean, it's part of Bulgari, right? And then turns to them and says, well, don't you want to take care of it? Now that you've been so involved with Gerald Genta and all of that. And their eyes, we all sort of looked at each other being like, what just happened, And then their eyes lit up and they were like, sure, for sure, we want to take care of that. And we want to restart the brand and do it the way that he did it back then. So we're starting slow, doing things, step by step. And I think the key element for both brands is making sure that the whole overall watch is the most complete possible. So entirely in-house movement, made specifically for the case, in the case of Roth and Genta as well, and with distinct elements that make it completely different than what you've seen from previous watches, which were most often bought-out movements that were sort of adapted for the case and things. Here we want to make something that's completely unique and different, that is exactly made for the watches.
Phenomenal. And then I guess the last thing we should discuss is, the evening that we all enjoyed, which is the Louis Vuitton Watch Prize for Independent Creatives. It's a give back to the culture of watches. I mean, how important is it for you to continue this and give back to the community?
I mean, for me, it's sort of a core part of our development as Louis Vuitton watches, because I feel like Louis Vuitton is a much bigger name than I wouldn't say the whole watch industry, but a big part of it's a big part of the watch industry and a big part of outside of the watch industry as well. And I want to use that name and that brand power, the spotlight that it can bring, to shed a light on the part of the industry that I love. And I think I would not have said that before, but now that we've lived that event where everything was so cordial, not cordial, but friendly, you know, I really want to continue supporting that part of the industry because there's no competition. You know, there's no sort of bickering about, oh, what kind of market share do I have in this market or this market, and then fighting for space in the different areas of the best cities in the world. It's really about the product. It's really about the passion of watchmakers, and I think we felt that there that night, and saying everybody is friends with each other. There's no sort of animosity about the fact that this one did a perpetual calendar before this one, or et cetera, et cetera. You know, there's patent infringements of this or that. There's no discussion about competition, and it's really about, oh my God, you did this great watch 2 years ago or last year, and I'm so impressed with that. Can I see it? Oh, it's on your wrist, so amazing. You know, even with the new guys coming up, I don't feel like there's any sort of competition. And you've seen with the 5 winners, the 5 finalists, all of them consider themselves as winners as well. And they don't see, oh, Raúl won, I'm so angry about it.
They were clapping for him.
Exactly.
They were like cheering him, and it was so wonderful. And that's the thing I love best about the watch industry is it's a family, right?
Yeah.
As we discussed that evening. And you've become kind of part of the epicenter of that, which is,
cool.
I
I wouldn't say that, but it's more, that part of the independent watch space for me is very interesting because it's a very friendly environment. And all of the watchmakers I've spoken to have said to me, oh, I'm constantly in contact with collectors on Instagram, in contact with collectors by WhatsApp or things like that, which you never see from bigger brands, right? I mean, they never get that sort of micro attention to individual people, and there's this individuality to it, which to me is very, very friendly.
So I have to say that I know he's your dad, right? But for someone walking on the stage, like, and seeing your dad and your mom there, it's pretty intimidating. In fact, I think it was at that moment I realized I was the only guy in the room not wearing a necktie, and I was like, oh dear. But it was really cool because I remember when you took the stage, he actually took his phone out and started recording you, and he was smiling. You know, how nice of a moment was that?
No, it's good. You know, it's fun. He'll never say that to me personally. He'll probably say it to people around him, but he'll never say it to me, saying bravo or anything like that. But it's a real token of appreciation for him to come, and my mom as well to be there in general. I'm super happy about it, you know, and super happy that they're supportive, you know. From the very beginning, the idea for the tambour was probably the first sort of foundational idea I had with Louis Vuitton watches, and then came the prize and all these different things, Genta, Roth. But my dad has been a big part of all that, cheering me on from, you know, the sidelines a little bit, and saying to me when I have a good idea or when the idea is terrible. Because you can imagine there are not only great ideas coming out, but some of them he's like, just don't do that, because it's not worth it. And he's been a very real support in that whole process. So I'm happy that he could join us for the ceremony and discover a lot about watchmaking as well. You know, he was seeing the pieces before going to the stage. And he was seeing like, oh my God, this is incredible. Like, I love the bee, or I love the Simon Brett, I love the movement of the Pétaman Beda. All these things he was discovering as well, because he's got a lot on his plate, obviously, doesn't get to see a lot of independent watchmakers in general. And he loves art, and I feel like he has the same sort of feeling that he has for watchmaking and independent watchmaking that he can feel for art. You know, it's artisans, artists that are using watches as their canvas. And he recognizes that. That's
awesome. Well, I'm going to conclude this with the statement that I made on stage, which was on behalf of the whole global watch fan, we're so happy you didn't choose leather goods or fragrances or fashion. We're in smiling. You know, thank God you chose watches, buddy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks.